been good. This is the final lesson, and I didn't know quite how to take that. Is this truly the point of low points? You got me up here. I'm not sure. Now, you know, I'm not seasoned like some of the ministers that we get the privilege of hearing. They come up with their iPad and have their message all in there, and it's just great, and they're all put together. I'm not that seasoned. I don't do this much. And after I get done, you'll probably all agree with that. But I didn't have the iPad, but you know, I have to have more resources. So I don't have all that stored away like some of these fine ministers we have. So let me get my resources. So if you're all turned to page 1. Brother Gaddy always talks about an introduction, 3 points, and a conclusion. So I've got 3 books here, so I think we're going to be okay today. But it was once said that the secret to a good lesson, Brother Shirley, is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and to have the two as close together as possible. So we'll give that a shot today. I like to laugh. You probably know that if you've been around me very much. But I ran across a little story about a little boy that was afraid of the dark. Anybody afraid of the dark in here? Nobody wants to admit it. One night his mother asked him to go out on the back porch and bring her broom. The little boy turned to his mother and said, "Mama, I don't want to go out there. It's dark." So the mother smiled reassuringly at her son and says, "You don't have to be afraid of the dark. Jesus is out there. He'll look after you and protect you." So he thought about it a minute, looked back at his mother real hard and said, "Are you sure he's out there?" She said, "Yes, I'm sure. He's everywhere. He's always ready to help you when you need him." So the little boy thought about that for a minute, went to the back door and cracked it open just a little and said, "Hey, Jesus, if you're out there, would you please hand me the broom?" So today we're going to talk about reviving dying dreams. You know, life is full of ups and downs, victories and defeats, wins and losses, dreams, shattered dreams. So we often see those who give up in defeat, but we also see those who can't stand defeat and want to try again and try harder. My mind went back to, now I'm a sports nut. I like it all. I love the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And back in 1988, there was a speed skater named Jannsen. And he was a phenom in his sport. He had a great career, great success. And he entered the 88 Winter Olympics in Calgary as a favorite for the event. So he was in 2 events, the 500 meter and the 1,000 meter in the speed skating. In the morning of the 500 meter race, he received a phone call that would change his life forever. Dan's mother called him that morning, February the 14th, and told him that his sister was dying and wanted to say goodbye. And then 4 hours later, he received another call telling them that his sister had died. So Dan gathered all his courage, and with the support of his family and the millions of people in the United States cheering him on for a win, He did his best to win the 500 meters for his sister, but 1,000 meters in, he slipped and he fell. So he goes from wanting to do this big thing for his sister that just passed, and now he's crushed. He fell. He's out of the race. Then he tried again in the 1,000-meter race, but another fall sent him home without an Olympic medal. So he continued skating after the disappointment in '88, trained hard, finished first in the World Cup in the 500-meter. So he went to the '92 Olympics in France. Once again, he was the favorite to win the race. And he was determined to win this one for his sister. But despite his hopes and that of all of the fans, he failed again. He stumbled in both races, finished fourth in the 500-meter and 26th in the 1,000-meter. I would say Dan had reached the point of low points at this time. A lot of people would have given in. You see it take Olympics every 4 years, so it's not like you can just go again tomorrow. A lot of people just thrown in the towel at that moment. Say, well, I have to wait another 4 years. I'll be 4 years older, maybe slower on skates. But ever persevering, Dan continued to compete. He won 2 more World Cup championships, but he was still lacking that Olympic medal that he'd always dreamed of. So in '94 in Norway, it was his final chance for a medal. And again, the favorite in the 500, that was his specialty. He was skating at a world record pace, and just a little slip cost Dan Jannsen the medal and pushed him down to 8th place. So now all he has left is the 1,000-meter, which was not his specialty. But he gave it his all. And not only did Dan finally win that Olympic gold, but he set a world record, and he dedicated the medal to his sister. So a dream of the gold medal kept him going. He kept trying. You've all heard the saying, down but not out, right? Probably said that a few times. There are many examples throughout history of this statement. Thomas Edison was credited with inventing the light bulb. You know he tried over 1,000 times to create the bulb or the model that he desired? Over 1,000 times. And a reporter once asked Thomas Edison, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? This is a great answer. He replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. What a way of looking at that. Mickey Mantle, one of the greatest baseball players of all time, said, during my 18-year career, I came to bat almost 10,000 times. I struck out about 1,700 times. I walked about 1,800 times. And if you figure a ball player will average about 500 at-bats per season, that means I played 7 years without ever hitting a ball. But really, it's not about that one at-bat in the game. It's not about one at-bat, one game. It's about the overall picture that we have to look at when we're in these low times. We're going to strike out at times. Everybody's going to strike out in this game of life that we're living in. But the big thing is we're still in the game. Coach hasn't set us down. So it's not about the times that we fail. It's about the victories we experience when we keep trying. Because the difference between a stepping stone and a stumbling block is just simply how you approach it. Are you going to line the fragments of a shattered dream? Are you going to scrape all of that together, dust them off, and try again? All of these things are very important in the point of low points. Because you can't change the past, but what you can do is affect your future. So in the story of Joseph, we find that his life was full of ups and downs. As Celinda talked about last week, he was sold into slavery. He worked himself up from the lowest ranks in Potiphar's house to a very well-respected, hard-working slave. He had risen from the lowest station to the highest station until his world once again came crashing in when he was when a false accusation put him in jail and put him back in bonds. So had it ended there, we'd probably never known Joseph's full story. Yes, his losses were great. Early on, he lost his mother. He lost his direction. He lost the affection of his own brothers who sold him into slavery because of jealousy. He lost his position in Potiphar's house. But through each loss, God repositioned him to be where he needed to be. You see, Joseph had excelled in Egypt, but he was in the wrong house. No matter how high he climbed that ladder, he would not have reached God's intended destination. God did not need him in the house of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. He needed him in Pharaoh's house so he could complete God's plan. Setbacks are God's preferred method for repositioning us for greater glory. Low points cause us to change ladders at times so we can go higher. You may reach the last rung of that ladder and there's nothing left. Sometimes we have to change ladders and see where that takes us. So in prison, Joseph came in contact with two people from Pharaoh's house, the chief butler and the chief baker. The chief butler would do more than serve Pharaoh. He also served God's purpose in connecting Pharaoh to Joseph. And he connected all that through dreams. These two men had dreams. Joseph interpreted them. And the dreams of these two men in prison eventually led to Joseph interpreting a dream for Pharaoh. So, dreamers of great dreams share many qualities with Joseph. And there's a few points today that a dreamer don't cling to the past, but instead looks to the future. That's a big one right there, folks. The statement earlier, you can't change your past, but you can affect your future. So we can't cling to that shattered dream. We can't cling to when we fall. We have to get up and look to the future. Dreamers see opportunity. Joseph found opportunity in Potiphar's house, and Joseph even excelled in prison. If you know the story, he was put in charge of the prison while he was still a prisoner. So, and I like this one, dreamers refuse to give up. So life is like wrestling a gorilla. You don't quit when you're tired. You quit when the gorilla's tired. Can anybody say amen to that? And dreamers exercise personal responsibility. Joseph could have blamed a lot of people for his life and the ups and downs and the dreams and shattered dreams. He could have blamed everyone for his predicament. But he chose to realize the steering wheel was in his hands. And he's the only one that could steer away from these foxholes that the enemy and family and whoever had thrown against him. So this is a big one to me, folks. It's not always someone else's fault. And that's what we like to do a lot of times when something happens, is point that finger. That wasn't at you, John. It just went that way. Sorry about that. Well, we got to take responsibility for our actions and try again. In our low points, sometimes God needs to change our directions. So, if God wanted to alter your direction today, how would he do it? Would he rent a big billboard along the side of the road, flashing, and says, hey, turn here, change this, do this? Would he send an armed motorcade up to us? Would he put a message in the bottle And somehow it flowed up on the Cabot pond and we were the ones to receive it? Probably not. So how does God communicate with us? He communicates through His Word, through His Spirit, through the faithful ministers that we're so privileged to hear on a weekly basis. And you know that He generally whispers. God rarely shouts. If He shouts, you're probably in trouble. Now, we would all prefer that billboard at times when we're seeking the will of God. We would like it flashing, "This is the job I have for you right here. Go here, do this, do that. This is the direction you need to take." But if God made things so obvious all the time, we may forget to listen to His Word and listen to His Spirit and listen to the faithful ministers that we're privileged to hear on a weekly basis. We may forget to listen for that whisper, that still small voice. So it could be that God permits low points to enter our lives to change our perspective on things, to change our purpose, to change our plans. Because God speaks to you in low points. Because that's usually when you're listening the most, because you need Him the most. So, when things are going good and we're living a good life, and maybe we're not always listening like we should. Maybe we're not worried about Him redirecting our life. We're looking around, hey, I got money in the bank. I got a brand new car. Things are going good. I got a new suit. I'm eating steak and lobster every night. Things are going good. Well, I need to listen for God. He's blessing me. Now, we do thank God for those times, especially the steak and lobster kind. But how many of you know that it's not always like that? Sometimes that new car is out of gas. Sometimes there's more month left than money. Can I hear an amen? Sometimes we're eating chicken one week and feathers the next. That's just how it is. God permits low points in our lives to change our perspective. So Joseph changed tracks in this fifth and final low point recorded in his life. The first mention of a prison in the King James Version of the Bible is in Joseph's fifth low point. Joseph's master took him and put him into prison, Genesis 39 and 20. Now, the Hebrew word for prison, kohar, can also be translated as a fortress, a tower, or a roundhouse. When I read that, a roundhouse. Now, a roundhouse nearly 2 centuries ago was a different sort of roundhouse. It was first built in England. BJ, can you put that picture up there? The roundhouse had numerous entrances, as you see in this picture, through which the steam locomotives could enter. But inside the roundhouse was a set of tracks on a turntable, as you see right there in the center. And what that did, it could pivot the steam engine to go out another direction. So, say it could come in one of these tunnels that you see, get on the roundhouse, and totally pivot. It could even go out the total opposite way. So that's what a roundhouse did. It created an exit point different from where it went in. So what engineers did for trains, as you see in this picture, that our Creator does for us. Okay? He recalibrates, repositions, He realigns our lives to bring the most glory to His name. The wise men who encountered the baby Jesus left a different way. The Bible says so. We as Christians have walked into this church many times needing direction, and we've left a different way. Has that happened to anybody in this building? You hear that many times over this pulpit. You can leave a different way than you came. Now, it's not necessarily you come in that door and you exit through that door. It's a total change in your life. So Joseph was thrown into prison, but it was the king's prison. it was reserved for the king's prisoners. So God was changing the trajectory of his life even in prison. And he made the prison keepers, he made Joseph a prison keeper. So, in broken dreams, Joel 2:28 and 29 says, "And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions, and upon my servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit." We've all heard that verse many times. But let me call your attention to the word afterward. And it came to pass afterward. So, what is that telling us today? There will always be an afterward. In the Great Fire of London that happened in 1666, it destroyed most of the city. But before the fire, there was a plague called the Black Death that was in that city, and it wreaked havoc, killed many people in that city. But you know, after the fire, there were no new instances of the plague. None were reported. No deaths because of the Black Death plague. The fire had destroyed that plague. The fire also warmed the ground so thoroughly that seeds buried deep in the earth were germinated and began to grow again. Forgotten species of plants and flowers emerged in the springtime in London. So the fire destroyed so much. But afterward, plagues were destroyed. Seeds that had been dormant began to flourish once again. Forgotten pieces of creation began to emerge from the ground again. So, this hit me so hard. Let me encourage somebody today. Your dream may look like a burned up city. You may look around and it's just charred fragments of a broken dream. It could be that God is using this trial to get rid of something that has plagued your dream. It could be that God is trying to destroy something that has affected your life for so long. But afterward, there will always be an afterward. What you see as a fire, God sees a chance to purge you of impurities, purge you of things in your life that may be harmful to you. So today, no matter how bleak your day is, a new day will come. Afterward, keep that in your mind today. Keep believing in what God has spoken. Keep believing that seed that you've thought has been dormant for so many years, all of a sudden can start flourishing once again. It may be that lost loved one. Whatever the situation is, that seed that you planted, it may have totally forgotten about it, and you think it's just lost and dormant. Could it be that fire that burns can germinate that once again, and that thing come to life, and other beautiful things begin to emerge? You've got to keep believing in your dreams. You've got to keep believing in your dreams. So we're going to watch the video today, and we'll follow up with some discussions. So enjoy this video.